NASCAR's 2019 Cup playoff field has been set. The 16 drivers that are in the playoffs have been set, and it is now time to make predictions based off of the 2019 playoff field and who I think will advance through to the different rounds, who I think will be eliminated during certain rounds. You may have noticed the lack of a race review the past two races. Reason being at Darlington was the fact I was just really tired and I never really had the time to make one in the week. So I just decided, there doesn't really need to be a review for that. By the time we've posted it, anyone would know what happened. And at Indy, I just didn't really enjoy the race. To be honest, I'll just give a quick summary of my thoughts of the race. It was pretty just kind of meh, like most Indy races are. The package, I don't think really helped it at all. Maybe it hurt it slightly. Maybe it was just a little bit harder to pass than in years past. But overall, I don't think the package helped Indy at all. And people who say that they liked the race maybe liked it because of the playoff drama, not necessarily the racing. Because there was no racing drama at all. The biggest drama they had in the race was Bubba Wallace finishing third. The playoff drama was so big where, like, Jimmy Johnson crashing out and he's going to, his streak is now done, and the battle between Suarez and Newman in points. So, in my opinion, the Indy race was just there, there wasn't really anything good about it. It was just another Indianapolis race in the Cup Series, which is, it is what it is. Last year's race there was pretty decent. This year's kind of remind me of a 2017, except there was never really, like, at least in 2017, I don't even know. Like, it just kind of really reminded me of 2017. I still think 2017 was a lot more crazy and stupid than this one. At least in this one, they didn't crash all the time, and we didn't go into, like, 5 overtimes, even though that didn't happen in 2017. It still, was pretty crazy at the end and pretty stupid at the end. But, for what maybe you clicked on the video for, playoff predictions. So obviously the 16 drivers in the playoffs, you have Denny Hamlin, Alex Bowman, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Clint Bowyer, Martin Truex Jr., William Byron, Eric Jones, Kyle Larson, and Ryan Newman. The first time ever you could say, you don't have to say Jimmy Johnson's name in the playoffs. He has not made the playoffs. His goal now is to just win a race for the years out to try and salvage something out of 2019. But to go into the playoffs, round one, we kick off at Las Vegas for what's going to be a late afternoon race, which will go probably to dusk. Night racing at Richmond, and then the Charlotte Roval, which last season was crazier than crazy. So my predictions are that the 4 drivers eliminated in the round of 16: Ryan Newman, Eric Almirola, Clint Bowyer, and Alex Bowman. Now, some of those choices might seem, pretty normal. Like Ryan Newman, obviously, he got there by the skin of his teeth. I figure if you made it by the skin of your teeth, and it's Roush Fenway Racing, I mean, maybe if Newman was with a more competitive team, he would have a shot, but I mean, he'll scratch and claw his way for top 15s, but I don't think it's going to be good enough. Maybe if he steals some stage points, he could have a shot, but overall, I just think that 6 team is just not top 12, They were good enough to make the chase by the skin of their teeth with some amazing luck. I mean, Newman was really the only one that didn't crash in the final 5 races leading up to the chase. So, in my opinion, Newman will be out just based off of speed. That 6 team doesn't really have the speed, so I think he'll be out because of that. Eric Almirola. It's been an underwhelming season for Eric Almirola. I think he's definitely been the third of 4 Stewart-Haas racing cars there, and at times he's battling Daniel Suarez to be the worst Stewart-Haas racing car there. He struggled at Darlington. He didn't really have a good car there. He hasn't really shown race-winning speed. He hasn't really shown top 5 speed this year. He's just kind of been there. And I think for that reason, he's not going to advance through the round of 1. He's had a pretty miserable season after what was a career season last year. This season has been nothing for him. It's just kind of been there. It's better than his seasons at Richard Petty Motorsports, but it's not that much better. He's just kind of there, and I believe just because he's there, he's going to be eliminated in round number 1. And the same goes for his teammate Clint Bowyer. Bowyer last year had a breakout year. He won 2 races. He made it into the playoffs, made it to the round of 8, where he unfortunately got eliminated. This season, once again, he has not really shown race-winning speed. He has contended for top fives at points. He's contended for top tens, but I don't see him making it past the first round, just because of the fact that he's been so inconsistent. Sometimes he's driving his car in over his head to where, trying to make up spots and trying to make the car go faster, that he messes up and crashes, kind of like Jimmy Johnson all throughout trying to lead up to the chase. Jimmy was trying to get more out of his car than what his car was capable of, and it caused Jimmy to crash and lose all those points. I think the same could happen for Clint Boyer, in the round of one. Maybe, he's going to try and, get something more of his car, make a mistake, do stuff like that. And the last spot was up for grabs between, I say, about 3 or 4 drivers. I think any one of Bowman, Byron, and Blaney could be eliminated. I think the same could go for Larson. But in my opinion, I think Alex Bowman is the one that kind of that's kind of stands out among those drivers as the one to be eliminated. Here's why. Hendrick Motorsports, as we know, has really fallen from where they were 5 years ago, being like on top of the world. Now they are, if we get a top 10, it's a good day. For Alex Bowman, he started out the season pretty mediocre. He was hanging on to a playoff spot. If not, he was outside looking in. And then he hit a string of races, Talladega, Dover, and Kansas, where he got seconds. And then he was getting top 10s and contending for wins. And he finally broke through and won at Chicagoland. But since winning at Chicagoland, he has one top 10, which is a 10th at Michigan. He was running inside the top 10 here at Indianapolis when he crashed. He was loose underneath Denny Hamlin and wrecked into the wall, and I think he ended up like 16th or something. At Darlington, he also had a top 10 car, but he got into the wall and had some flat tire issues and whatever, right? In my opinion, the 88 team is once again too inconsistent to make it through to the second round. Now, they made it through to the second round last year by the skin of their teeth, so nothing tells me that they couldn't do it again. But in my opinion, I feel like the field's a lot closer this year than it was last year. I feel like last year the drivers that got eliminated in the first round really did kind of deserve it. But I just think that Alex Bowman's team, the 88 team, they haven't really shown consistent top 5, top 10 speed, which is alarming at this point in the season. I feel like they peaked too high, in the season, the end of the Fox era, the beginning of the NBC era. So I kind of feel like that Bowman has peaked a little bit too early, and now he's starting to go back down a little bit, and his results are kind of showing it. So I believe the 4 drivers out in the round of 1, Ryan Newman, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, and Alex Bowman. Now we go on to the round of 12, which consists of Dover, Talladega, and Kansas. Once again, if Bowman were to make it through to the round of 12, maybe he would be in a good shape, because obviously he finished second at Dover, finished second at Talladega, finished second at Kansas earlier in the season. But the 4 drivers I believe will be eliminated in the round of 12 for 2019, William Byron, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski. Now, some of those might be a little shocking, but here's why. William Byron, obviously, it's been his best season so far in Cup. Last season he didn't make the chase. This season he did. He has some more top 5s and top 10s than he did last season. But in my opinion, it's not speed enough to be able to get deep into the playoffs. I think he can make a run through the first round and then maybe get lucky at Talladega in round 2 or something. But in my opinion, William Byron hasn't shown much race-winning speed this season, if at all, and that's going to hurt him. He's been running consistently better with Chad Knaus. I feel like they've gotten better as the season's gone on, and they've brought faster cars to the racetrack. Byron's finished in the top 5 the last few races. He's been pretty good the last few races, but in my opinion, he just hasn't been good enough throughout the season to really kind of set him apart inside the top 8. Same goes for Ryan Blaney. He's the third man out at Penske. It just seems like he's always kind of outside of his teammates Logano and Brad Keselowski. Those two seem to be dominating, and Blaney seems to falter, not be able to get through as far or get wins like them. He's led a ton of laps this season. He's just had some unfortunate luck. But as of late, he hasn't really had race-winning speed. Once again, he hasn't really had the speed to run up front. And I think that's alarming at this point in the season, as we are now into the final 10 races of the season. You have to be performing. You have to have that momentum coming in, like Denny Hamlin or Kevin Harvick. And Blaney doesn't have that. And he hasn't had it for a while. So I think Ryan Blaney would be eliminated as well in the second round. Same goes for Kyle Larson, who has had a fluctuating season. back, around the time Fox was broadcasting, like Talladega and Kansas and all that, Kyle Larson was down like 18th in points and on the verge of not making the playoffs. Since then, he has solidified himself into the playoffs. He actually locked up a spot a few races ago before Indianapolis. And lately it has been a turnaround for Larson. He's had speed. He's had better speed. He's been contending with his teammate Kurt Busch for the top man at Chip Ganassi Racing. However, I feel like Kurt is still the top man at Chip Ganassi Racing, and I feel like Larson is going to be out in the round of 12 just because he hasn't had the best pace, and he's also had some terrible luck this season, and that luck can sometimes follow you into the playoffs, and I think it might do that for Larson this season. And the final man I said that would be out was the 2 of Brad Keselowski. Now here's why. Brad won 3 races earlier in the season, so he had a pretty good string going, but lately he hasn't really had much go right for him. Brad Keselowski has really had a terrible time since NBC has taken over. He hasn't really finished many races. It feels like, once again, Penske kind of peaked too soon. I feel like Penske was really good early on in the season. Brad winning 3 races, Logano winning a race. Logano was contending with Kyle Busch for the points lead and those 15 bonus points, but as of late, Kyle Busch really rocketed away from Joey Logano in that regard. And I just feel like Brad Keselowski isn't as consistent as his teammate Joey Logano, and that's alarming at this stage in the season. You have to be consistent to make it through. You can't go to Dover and finish 15th, and then go to Talladega and get a 20th and expect to point your way through with a 10th place at Kansas. You have to be, in a 3-race season, you have to be top 10 in all 3 races to advance through. So you have to be consistent. In my opinion, Brad Keselowski and the 2 team have not really shown that as of late in the season. So that leaves us now down to 8 drivers. 4 still from Joe Gibbs left. You have that Hendrick driver still left of Chase Elliott. You have Stuart Haas with Kevin Harvick. And I think Kurt Busch is in there, and so is Joey Logano. So round of 8 consists of Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. In my opinion, the 4 drivers out at the end of the round of 8 are going to be Eric Jones, along with Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, and Joey Logano. So, go through them. Kurt Busch, he's had an amazing season for Chip Ganassi Racing. The best that one car has looked in a long time, probably since 2010. Kurt has propelled that team. He is definitely a wheelman. He has raw talent. Once he gets behind the wheel, he shows it. And, I feel like he'll take that one team far into the playoffs. They'll get to the round of 8, but I feel like they won't have enough playoff points to get through like some of the Gibbs cars have and Kevin Harvick. The Gibbs cars have a great amount of playoff points built up already. Kurt Busch has that win, but otherwise it hasn't really, he hasn't really gotten scored playoff points. So in my opinion, Kurt Busch will be out in the round of 8, but he probably will make it close. Kurt can wheel that car, and he can get more out of the car than what the car has. So I believe Kurt Busch could make it close to get into the Final 4. Next driver, Chase Elliott. He had an amazing start to the season. I believe in the first 16 races or so, something like that. First 14 races or something, he scored the third most points. So Chase was on fire. And then ever since then, I believe the last 13 races or so, he has fallen to where I think he scored the 20th most points. A win at Watkins Glen is his only shining spot. I believe some playoff points will carry him further into the playoffs than most, and also the experience he's had. In 2016, his rookie season, he made it to the second round and when he got eliminated. In 2017, he almost made it into the Final 4. He finished 5th in points. Last season, he made it to the round of 8, finished 6th in points. So I think he has experience in the chase. He's a solid driver. He's a consistent driver. He can bring it home at the end of the day. I believe Chase Elliott will make it into the round of 8, but he won't quite have enough to make it into the Final 4. Also said that Joey Logano would be eliminated in this round. Logano, once again, Penske camp hasn't really shown the speed since the beginning of the year. Maybe Logano will pull something like he did last year, where he'll come out of nowhere and just kind of sneak his way into the Final 4 and then win the championship. But in my opinion, I felt like last year they at least had more of a chance because Brad Keselowski went out for Penske and won 3 in a row, 2 in a row heading up to the chase, and they were still running kind of decent. Joey Logano has been very inconsistent leading up to the chase. Indianapolis was a good day for him, and his first good day in a long time. In my opinion, he's got playoff points to take him into the round of 8, but I don't think he has the speed Gibbs has at this point in the season to make it into the Final Four. And speaking of Gibbs, I also believe that a Joe Gibbs driver has to be knocked out in the round of 8, and that unfortunate driver is Eric Jones. His 3 teammates have scored 3 wins this season. Jones got the win at Darlington. But before that win at Darlington, he was the man out of Joe Gibbs Racing. People were saying if Christopher Bell is going to get a ride, it could be Eric Jones's, because Jones has not shown the pace of his teammates this year. But lately, Martin Truex Jr. has faded off a little bit, but Eric Jones has kind of risen, and he won at Darlington. It's his second win of his career. In my opinion, though, I still feel like the other 3 will be able to make it farther than Eric Jones. Kyle Busch, obviously, I think is definitely a lock for the round of 8. And will definitely have a great shot making it into the Final Four. Same with Denny Hamlin, although Hamlin does seem to choke around this time of year, so don't count him out. And then Martin Truex Jr., right, last year. Just think of Virtual Racing last year, heading into the playoffs. They were nobodies. They finished horrible at the Brickyard. It might have been last where they finished. They weren't having good races. People were saying, oh, because they announced that they're shutting down, they're just not on their game, right? They just aren't performing well. But something about Cole Pearn and Martin Truex Jr., they're good at coming back and performing well. And they did it last year. And they made it all the way into the Final Four and finished second in the championship. So I feel like Martin Truex Jr. will be able to do that again. And Eric Jones, I feel like it's just the odd man out Gibbs at this point. So that leaves us down to Kyle Busch, the guy who has dominated the regular season. Denny Hamlin, who's come on strong as of late. He's won so many races as of late leading up to the playoffs. Martin Truex Jr., who has fallen off a little bit, but is still sneakily fast in the playoffs, and Kevin Harvick, who just like Denny Hamlin has come alive and has scored 3 victories ever since New Hampshire. In my opinion, the 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion will be Kyle Busch. I said at the beginning of the season, I had a list of, I think, 10 predictions. My last prediction was Kyle Busch will be the 2019 Cup champion. I'm sticking with it. Here is why. Kyle Busch, he is fast this year. He is complaining about the package. He's mad about the package. He's mad about the cars. But he could still drive them. And even with that anger, he's still driving through them. He's making mistakes when he's angry. But if he can tone it down and quit those mistakes, he can easily win the championship at Homestead. They've had race-winning speed almost every single week we've gone to a track. They've had top 10 speed every single week we've gone to a track. Some unfortunate circumstances have kept them from that as of late. Obviously, at Pocono, they kind of screwed themselves with some fuel strategy. At Watkins Glen, Kyle Busch went insane and batshit crazy that race and absolutely got mad at everyone. Obviously, here at Indy, they had engine issues, kind of a la 2011, 2012 TRD era. At Bristol, they never really had race speed, but they got themselves into contention and led a lot of laps. At Michigan, they didn't really have speed either. But Kyle Busch finds a way to get more out of his race car than anyone else on the racetrack. He has some of the most raw talent of the field, and in my opinion, that goes a long way. This package closer resembles the Truck Series package, where he has been dominant. He's been dominant because he has the best equipment in there, and also because, the other people don't have as much experience as Kyle. But I feel like this does suit him a little bit, this type of racing. I feel like he's smart about it. As long as he doesn't get mad about the package, he's smart about it. So in my opinion, Kyle Busch will beat out his teammates and Kevin Harvick for the championship. However, I feel like Hamlin and Harvick and Truex can really give him a run for their money because Harvick has been very strong as of late. I mean, he makes the Final Four almost every season that we've had this format, and I think he could once again be a factor. He was very strong earlier last year at Homestead, and then kind of fell off once the sun set when Logano kind of rose up. Martin Truex Jr. has always been good at Homestead ever since he was in championship position in 2017. He obviously won that race in 2017, and then 2018 he finished second to Joey Logano. But once again, Truex and Cole Pearn can set up a mean Homestead car. Kyle Busch's maybe worst oval racetrack on the schedule might be Homestead, but if he and Adam Stevens can get some sort of setup together, I feel like they can win that race at Homestead. And I feel like whoever wins the championship, they're going to be winning the race at Homestead. So that's my predictions. If you have predictions, leave them in the comments below. It's very interesting to see how people kind of think about, the different things, maybe swapping a driver out here or there from other people's predictions. It's very interesting to see who will come closest to the actual thing. You just never know with the playoffs. It's always crazy. There's always some surprise that goes further than you expect into the playoffs, and there's always a surprise that gets knocked out earlier than you would suspect. So otherwise, I think that's about it for this episode. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.